I would like to think that I can stay calm in the interviews I do for this podcast. But I'll be honest, for this one, I was a little starstruck and I stumbled over my words numerous times. My guest organizes one of the greatest gaming conventions in the TTRPG community. He is one of the top dogs at Gygax Works, a veteran-owned company focused on creating well-designed and fun games for everyone. And he was literally raised on Dungeons & Dragons as the son of Gary Gygax. Are you ready for this? Luke Gygax, today on the Old Men Rolling Dice podcast. Old Men Rolling Dice is brought to you by CanadianDice.ca. Don't forget to use the OMRD code at checkout for a 10% discount off your entire order. Congratulations on GaryCon 15.
It was a smashing success. I was really so happy with the way it turned out. You know, coming back from COVID was not easy.
No,
it took, there was a lot of staff change, a lot of turnover, at the hotel. The hotel was, almost, I'm guessing they were at least 3/4 new people.
Wow.
And same thing for my staff. A lot of people just had life events happen. They had to move on, and whatever the life situation was, they were no longer able to be there. They got married, they changed jobs, they had kids, whatever it was. The net result was we lost a lot of that stability and experience, right? And so 2022, although great and celebratory, fantastic to see people again, despite still some hangover from COVID, where we're wearing masks, and some folks weren't super excited about that. But we worked through all that and had a wonderful time in 22. I think we had about 2,300 or 2,400 people buy badges to come to GaryCon 14, but it didn't feel that full. And I think our actual check-in was more like 1,900. So a lot of people elected not to come is my understanding. I obviously don't count noses, but I'll just say, I assume they checked in, right? Got their badge. 23 was great. The people who I brought on for 22 went through the crucible of 22 and had to figure things out. We worked hard all year round. We put a lot of processes in place. They were very dedicated. Really there for the right reasons, had so many, just guys who show up and are like, we're so thankful for what your father did. We love what you're doing here. We just want to make sure this goes as smoothly as possible for you and your family. We want nothing other than just tell us what you need us to do. We're all highly skilled professionals, but we will unload a truck for you, or we'll build websites, or whatever it is. What do you need done?
Oh, that's great.
And it was fantastic. And 2023, GaryCon 15, was the best GaryCon that I've ever experienced. It was the smoothest. There was no emergencies behind the scene. Did everything go perfectly right? Of course not. It's a live event. Gosh,
I don't know that that's even a realistic expectation.
No, it's not. It's not. It went better than I could have possibly hoped for. And again, that was due to the hard work of a dedicated team who really believes in what GaryCon is about, really works selflessly to bring that joy and set those conditions for people to have such a good time.
And I think that was felt as someone who had never been to one before. That set a very high bar to all the other conventions that I've been to. I would hope that all listeners understand this, but a memorial in a way to your father. And you were there with your daughters and wife, and I got to play with a number of people that were there, sons and fathers and mothers and sisters and brothers. There just seemed to be a real family feeling at GaryCon, which I hadn't experienced at other conventions. And there's a legacy there, and just curious what your thoughts on that are.
For those who don't know, GaryCon came out of a very sad event. My father passed away on March 4th of 2008. He was Gary Gygax, the co-creator of Dungeons & Dragons. Gosh, I grew up playing Dungeons & Dragons. There is no time in my life where I wasn't gaming. Role-playing gaming, I was raised on RPGs. I was raised on D&D, so I'm kind of patient zero for that. So that has been something that I've done my entire life. So I see the world through, a lens of of RPGs and Dungeons and Dragons specifically. That was the game I played the most. I joined the Army at 18. I sent myself to college. I was my own person, but I stayed close to my father. I considered him my best friend. And when even though I lived in California for a number of years and married and had children and stuff, the loss of a parent is gosh, it's just a really life-changing event. And if you haven't lost a parent, please call them, go over to their house, give them a hug, tell them you love them. Don't wait. Don't waste that time. I think everyone has said that. They're there.
Yeah.
Please take advantage of that. But when my father was gone, personally devastating. So we went to Lake Geneva and planned his funeral. And at this time, hundreds, thousands actually, of people were posting, Gary Gygax is, passed away. And they would say things like, it feels like I lost somebody in my family. It feels like I lost my father. I didn't know Gary, but he played a profound role in who I am today. I had a learning disability, yet I saw these books and the amazing pictures that were on them, and I just had to figure out what was inside. And so I forced myself to read, and I overcame this disability. Other folks were terribly shy, or perhaps were somewhere on the autism spectrum, or other issues. And Dungeons and Dragons gave them a safe group of friends that they could rehearse social interactions with, and gain confidence and skills, as well as have a good time. Other folks just had a tough time, whether it was, parents who were undergoing, there was some difficulty at home, alcoholism, or even worse things, domestic abuse and things of that nature. Yet Dungeons and Dragons gave them a way to escape that and practice being somebody who had agency, who was a hero, who could change the situation that they were in, and they were able to internalize those skills and take control of their lives and not be victims. And so people just basically said these things over and over again in different ways. And I realized, wow, okay, I appreciate Dungeons and Dragons, and my dad is a great game designer. But I didn't realize that he had this much impact on people's lives and, of course, culture, as I looked at things in a bigger scale. And when some of them said, we're going to come to Lake Geneva and pay homage to Gary, I was like, oh man, we have nowhere to welcome them. Now, the funeral is, it's small. It's meant for friends and family. That's not an appropriate place. So we rented the American Legion Hall, which was a site of earlier conventions in my childhood. We just held a gathering, a memorial service, and anyone was welcome. We played the D&D cartoon and, the Futurama episode, and we had a podium and people could speak to it. And we did what my dad loved so much in life, which is play games. And it just seemed like such a fitting celebration. People encouraged me to do it again in the following years. And that's how GaryCon was born. So GaryCon has its roots in a family gathering. Sure, it's my family, right? But I guess the best thing I've heard is people describe it as, GaryCon is my family reunion, but it's not my biological family. It's a family I choose, my gamer family. It's where I go to feel like I'm amongst people who understand me. Yeah. And that's what it is. And of course, I'm 52 now, and a lot of us are older, so we have kids. Some of us have adult kids, and maybe they have grandchildren that come, and there's really nothing as cool to share with young people as RPGs, right? I mean, that's just a wonderful bonding experience. You can do all sorts of wild, fun things and capture their imagination and form these strong bonds with young people that when they're teenagers and when they're adults, you have that common ground. You have something you can come together on, which is difficult. Being a teenager is hard. I thought
Incredibly.
I thought my dad, oh, Dad, you're like an old folk. You don't understand my situation. I'm so unique. Right. We all have that. We all face that. I didn't always get on with my dad perfectly, but he was a good guy, good dad, and I loved him very much. And I think that that's most people's experience, right? We don't always get along perfectly, but we love that person, respect them, and we can certainly, in retrospect, appreciate their position once we have a couple of years under our belt.
For sure.
I get it now. I understand what
that really resonates with me. I lost my mom about a little more than 2 years ago now. Don't take it for granted. Get out there and talk and spend time with your family. And also having kids of my own now, 2 teenage boys. My daughter's only 8. loving spending time with them and playing games like Dungeons and Dragons and other role-playing games with them. In fact, when we're done here, my middle son Ryan, he's going to DM his first game tonight.
Oh, great!
And yeah, everything that you spoke to there resonates with me, and I really feel that. I have one more question for you about GaryCon, and then we'll move on to Gygax Works. Highlights of my GaryCon. I got to meet Jeff Easley, and he actually drew a dragon in one of my books. I got to meet Margaret Weiss. Dragonlance opened up a world of reading for me. Not that I couldn't read, but I didn't read. I was just, a teen boy that wasn't interested. Margaret Weiss changed all that for me. I got to meet Todd Stashwick, who I had gamed with on a Halloween special, and then finally got to meet him in person. So these are all bucket list things for me. I'm just ticking all the boxes. Yeah. Is there something that ticks a bucket list for you at GaryCon? I know that you've had lots of interactions with celebrities and things like that through the course of the game, but is there a wow factor, something that happens at GaryCon or something that did happen at GaryCon that does that?
Well, of course, it's great to meet people, and whether they're famous or whatever, that's nice. But probably the most joy I get out of something is when it's kind of dumb, but I do a drawing down in the forums where the exhibit hall is to help draw traffic down there. So I have a deck of many things that we made the previous year that has art. It's artists from GaryCon, and so it's a GaryCon deck of many things. So we call it the deck of Gary things. And then, people gather there before the hall opens up, and I call them at random and I say, "Hey, where are you from? Where, what's your name? Where are you from? What are you doing at GaryCon? Have you played any games? Okay, great. Are you ready to draw from the deck?" And then they draw, and if you get something bad, it might be oh, you have to, go see JD at the headquarters and sign up for a volunteer shift or something like that, right? You have to pay your points or wear your T-shirt backwards, just something silly, or you get 50% off something at the GaryCon booth, or a free silver or even a gold badge to the next GaryCon. So there's some nice prizes. But what's exciting to me is when I meet, there's some young people there, and maybe they just discovered D&D and they're in high school or college or whatever. And they're like, "This is so awesome. I love it. Oh my God, this is great. Can I get a picture with you? Will you sign this thing?" And they want to tell me all about this stuff. And just seeing that excitement is pretty cool. For me, that's pretty rewarding, because that's the next generation of gamers. It's just seeing that joy. That's really cool. And so that's fun. That's probably number one. It's great to see my kids helping me out and working and understanding, because I tell them, "Hey, your grandpa was an important guy. I'm their dad." Exactly. Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, Dad. Sure. Yeah. But other people say, "Wow, your grandpa was so cool. This is important to me." And they really understand it. And because he died before they were able to remember him. Miriam, my oldest, was not even 2 years old. Sure. So that's pretty neat to see my family being able to embrace that. And then in general, I've reconnected with so many people that were friends of my father's and worked with them. So whether it's Jim Ward or Tim Kask or Errol Otis or Larry Elmore or these guys, and they're just great people. I've made tons and tons of new friends, and just in general, walking through and seeing the smiles on people's faces. I don't make a lot of money doing good. GaryCon's not a moneymaker, but running a convention is not. It's not a moneymaker. Most of it just goes straight back in there. I work 1,000 hours on GaryCon a year, and it's not me. This is not a me thing. This is a definitely a group effort. There's a lot of dedicated people who are also not making money on this, who do it because they love this. So it's really just seeing those smiles. That's excellent. And people. I mean, gosh, people told me not only was this the best GaryCon that they'd had, they said, "This is the best convention I've ever been to." That makes me feel good. That's wow, okay, great. We really are delivering, and people, they feel the love, they get what it's about. And my dad loved gaming and gamers, and this was his passion and his joy, and he spent his entire life was really focused on gaming, whether it was as a professional or an amateur. And to be able to continue that legacy is just a great honor for me.
So Gygax Works is a gaming company that you founded in 2018, correct?
Yep, that's right.
And you host Founders and Legends, which is Founders and Legends Day, which is a stream. Do you do that on Twitch?
Yep, we do it on Twitch.
I feel I've watched it, but I can't.
You may have. So I did it in 2018. So essentially what happened is GaryCon used to be smaller and my buddies would help me run it and I'd have time to play games with them. And then it got bigger and they're like, man, we hardly get a chance to breathe while we're there and we don't play any games and you're just running around like furiously doing stuff. And like, we should get together in between GaryCons and like just play games. And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And let's do it around my dad's birthday. Okay, that makes sense. It's the summertime. It's nice. Then somebody had the bright idea. Yeah, we could just record it or stream it or something. Like, yeah, that can't be that hard. Let's do that. So like 3 weeks before I had this idea to do it, I just called, I talked to Mike Merles at Wizards of the Coast, and he was the head of D&D at the time. And he's like, yeah, sure, why not? We can figure out something. And, he connected me with people. So we're going to put it on the Wizards Twitch channel. And I was like, yeah, I need a place to shoot it, And so Matt Colville was like, well, you could probably use my place. And then somebody pointed me at the Critical Role Studios because they were brand new at that time.
Oh, okay.
And so they had room. And so they were like, yeah, dude, of course, you're welcome to come here. They're very, very nice, welcoming people. And so I shot, we just went to the Critical Role Studios. I was like, hey, I guess I'll just use your crew if that's okay. And they're like, yeah, dude, we'll totally do it. And I was like, well, I'm just here for a day. We may as well do like, I don't know, let's do 3 games, like 3 hours each and, do an hour or something in between. So it's 12 hours of content, right? That's like 16, 18 hours of work.
Yeah, sure.
By the way, right? And so people flew in, Stefan Picorni, like all these guys just kind of flew in at the last second because I asked them to. And, I didn't have any sponsors or anything. I just paid out of pocket. It was, even with all these people kind of cutting me deals, it was still like $15,000 to do like a 1 day.
Oh, wow.
A 1 day thing. So my wife was like, yeah, we're not going to do that again. We're going to make sure you plan this. So that was not good. But yeah, it was great. It was wonderful, but then set my expectations very, very high.
Sure.
Our last game was Mike Merles running just an incredible kind of Thrisden themed dungeon where we went into the steading of the Hill Giant Chieftain. I was playing Melf. Joe, he's like, yeah, I'll play, but I have a shoot, so it may be dicey. He had to drive like 100 miles an hour across Los Angeles. Ran in 5 minutes before we go live. And just like, I don't need makeup, like push the makeup lady aside, sat down and had Archon out. And it was like the best game. We played like the best game. And we got down to like the big bad at the end, some sort of huge, horrible, octopusy, disgusting, Cthulhu-ish kind of thing. And it's reaching out these black tendrils. And so as Melf, I hasted Archon, and he just went wild, and he action surged and had like 1 billion attacks. He did 315 points of damage. He critted.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, it killed the big bad, and it was just amazing. Just a wonderful time. It was like just one of those moments, and so it was super fun. So yeah, that was my first Founders and Legends. That's how Gaxworks started, and then I retired from the Army last year, and I decided, hey,
congratulations on that.
Thank you. And I said, okay, well, my dad, I've been writing modules for GaryCon, tournament modules, just kind of as an homage to my dad, and he wanted me to be creative. And I said, well, I'm doing these modules and stuff, and I've kind of created this little setting that's 99% in my head. Why don't I start publishing these to a wider audience? And that's what I started doing. Last year we had our first Kickstarter for the Heart of Shintufi. I'd already written, that was part 2. I'd written part 1, Eye of Shintufi, for GaryCon 13, which also didn't happen, right? It was ethereal. It was, virtual only. And then, so Heart of Shintufi, we kickstarted that and said, hey, you can buy the Eye of Shintufi, Heart of Shintufi. Yeah. And then the third part, Fate of Shintufi, is going on. The Kickstarter is going on right now. So if you want to go there, I'm sure there'll be a link, but
we're going to make sure that there's a link in the podcast description, and as well as on our Instagram. We've been putting it up in our story, I think, all week.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. The first one was just a one, like you said, it was written for GaryCon, so it was a session. Is the second one also a one session sort of adventure, or is it something that would take longer?
they're kind of written to be one session, but we failed. We failed miserably. I've run I have Shintuki is kind of part one, and it's for 7th level characters ish, 7th, 8th level, right? And yes, you can play it in 4 hours, but you're putting the pedal to the metal.
I was going to say, like, I've never had a chance to run it. I have read through it, and I'm like, okay, if you can get this done in 4 hours, my hat's off to you.
Yeah, but, it's about, I would say more realistically, it's about 8 hours, potentially 12, but somewhere between 8 and 12.
It depends on your character. I think it depends on your players.
So the Gygax pack, I do the Gygax pack with Jason Charles Miller and a bunch of other great players.
Yep.
And they were running Eye of Shintufi for prior to GaryCon for 3 episodes, 9 hours, right? They got to the first encounter. So that was it. They spent 2 game sessions on the introduction.
Yes.
And then they got to the library, which is really like kind of the first major beat in the story. And that was it. That was 9 hours. That was 9 hours of play. But they did a whole lot of like role playing.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, if you're an exceptional group of people who do a lot of that, this could be a very long adventure for you. But I'm guessing you should get at least 8 hours out of it. It's a well written and well produced. It has good artwork, beautiful maps from Alyssa Fadden in the Heart of Shintupi.
I love her art. I love her art.
She's great. And she's just such a wonderful person. She's at GaryCon all the time as well. Yeah. She does GaryCon maps for us. She maps the venue in a theme each year. So yeah, she's a lovely person. Really, really appreciate Alyssa. But yeah, you got I have Shintupi, Heart of Shintupi, and then Fate of Shintupi.
And Fate of Shintupi is being kickstarted right now. If you had an elevator pitch for like Fate of Shintupi, what would it be?
I have to give you a quick synopsis.
Absolutely.
And you can pledge the Kickstarter and get all 3 of these modules.
I'm already in for it.
Yeah. Okay, good. So you got digitally or in print, either one, signed or not signed. So you got all sorts of
options.
Many options. We're here to please. So Eye of Shintufi, hey, you're an experienced party in the city of Shintufi in the world of Okrim. What is the world of Okrim, you ask? Well, it's based on my experiences of a lifetime of gaming and my deployments to the Middle East. It's I created it because I wanted folks to have a sense of wonderment, reestablish a sense of wonderment. If we're constantly playing in a kind of a Western European mythology and folklore, gets, maybe, we kind of know what's coming our way. So I kind of made it more of a Bosphorus or Middle Eastern sort of settling, a crossroads of cultures, and the world suffered some sort of terrible cataclysm thousands of years ago. I was working with Jim Ward on the first couple of these modules written in first edition.
Yeah.
And I thought, Jim, kind of Gamma world. How about if there was a magical nuclear war essentially that happened?
Yeah.
What would this be like? So this once verdant land is now turned into kind of a desert. There's a lot of weird mutated monsters and strange rifts open up to other planes and crazy stuff happening. But this one city, the city of Shintufi, all the structures survived. It was kind of like neutron bomb. The people were destroyed, but the structure stood. And so there's these amazing buildings that, onion top towers that stretch hundreds of feet up into the air, a functioning sewer system. There's, streets that are paved, all these things that are unknown today. It has been repopulated by different people, and some of the magical features are still available, but most people, it's unintelligible. They can't use it. But people go out into the blighted lands to search for lost treasures and magic and that sort of thing. And that's what your adventures do. So you are one of these adventuring bands who've done that, and you've survived till now. And a person approaches you, Pelicos the Red, and says, hey, I have a simple task. I need some help. I'm trying to find this thing called the Oculus of Sen Rabbah. And I've tracked it here to Shintufi, but man, I've just been stumped. So of course, being adventurers, you're always short on cash. You accept the mission, and you figure out, where can we go that would they maybe talk about some past relics? Hey, there's this grand library that we go to in the Temple District. You go there, you con your way or bribe your way into the reserve stacks, the hidden stacks, and lo and behold, you're attacked by some folks who are guardians, apparently, trying to dissuade you from pursuing this information. Why are you trying to find this thing? The world was destroyed once by these powers. And that's sort of the beginning. So you're on your way and you get some clues and you track down where you think the Eye of Shintufi is. You defeat a very powerful Merid guardian that's guarding a gateway that leads down into some place that's been abandoned for thousands of years. And you figure out what that is. I don't want to give too much away in the heart of Shintufi.
Sure.
You go through some battles. Man, feel like you're always just one step away from finding where the Oculus is. At the end of that one, you see the Oculus briefly, but then your hopes are dashed and it disappears.
Mm-hmm.
And the fate of Shintufi picks up some weeks or months later when the city of Shintufi is suffering a drought. The water supply has been interrupted, and there's 1 million souls in Shintufi. People are getting restless. The rulers, both formal and informal, are quite upset by that, obviously, because disruptions like that cost people money, right? Eventually, they figure out, there was a guy who was looking for this powerful artifact associated with the water element, and some group of people were helping him out. Hey, wait a second, that's you guys.
Fair.
And that's how you're introduced to having to figure out what happened and to resolve it or else. And that's the fate of Shintufi. So yes, and I don't want to give away too much, but there's some journeys involved.
It sounds like a lot of gin involved, like genies.
There is. There's this one's going to take you across some water and potentially underwater in James Bond fashion. You may have to invade an underground fortress of the big bad evil guy or girl, as the case may be, and figure it out. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. This will wrap it up, at least this part of it. But there's I don't want to give too much away, but.
There could be more. There could be more.
There could be some more.
Some loose ends to tie up, maybe.
Well, there's more than one element. That's all I'm saying. Oh
yeah, there you go. Yeah. I like that idea. I think I like where that's going. So the Kickstarter is currently live, and I promise you it's not going to fail because it's already met what the pledges it needed, and it's now well into its stretch goals. It might actually have cleared all its stretch goals. So all you have to do is go over and you'll get a great and sign up, and you'll get a great product. Luke, I appreciate you coming and talking to me today. I have one last question for you. We started talking about your dad and then your project. Do you think your dad would like the trilogy of adventures? Would that have been his kind of jam? Maybe he just would have been happy to see your creativity.
Well, before I answer that, since you talked about stretch goals,
sure.
Say yes. Goals. Right now we're like at 23,000 something as we shoot this. So at 25,000, we're getting like a ton of Dragonlock printable terrain, the dungeon expansion set, and
I'm so glad you brought that up.
And a couple, so that's coming at 25,000. So that's pretty much a lock. We're at day 5 or 6 or something like that. So we're Then next up we have Todd Stashwick.
We already talked about earlier.
Yeah, Todd Stashwick, Captain Shaw himself, is going to create an NPC in the retinue of the BBEG.
Oh, I love
this evil NPC for you. Brian Berg is once again going to contribute. So he's set up, but I haven't announced this yet. But there's a couple other heavy hitters that I've held off on. Well, also I talked to the guys at Mythmere, Matt Finch and Susie Mosby. They're going to convert all 3 of them to Swords and Wizardry, and we're going to offer that.
Great!
If you buy Fate of Shintufi, we'll give you the Swords and Wizardry PDF. If you buy the physical copy, we give you a PDF of the 5e version. We'll also give you the Swords and Wizardry. If you buy all 3 of the print modules, boom, you'll get digital copies of 5e and Swords and Wizardry.
Which is amazing because we have a lot, being old men rolling dice. We have so many old school role players that maybe aren't 5th edition players, but
of course.
Opening it up with Swords and Wizardry, that's fantastic.
Yeah, those guys are great. And we did Castles and Crusades last time too. I'm sure I can talk to the trolls and they'll be happy. Of course, Steve Chenault and Chuck Cumbo and Davis, they're all friends of mine. So I'm sure they'd be happy to do that. But the kind of heavy hitters I have coming up is Robert Schwalb, if you know Rob Schwalb.
Yes, I do.
So he's a great guy.
I want to say Shadow of the
Demon Lord.
Demon Lord, yes.
Yeah, he is. I played D&D with him. Dude, he is great and scary and creepy. Oh my gosh, he gets that so well.
That setting, Shadow of the Demon Lord, very dark and creepy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it is. And it's not sunshine and rainbows. It's not a walk in the park. So he's going to contribute something, and I was so happy. Great. And Rob, hopefully Rob will be back in 2024 to GaryCon because I love having him there, and he's worked on fourth and fifth edition, as well as his own stuff. So he's a very talented designer.
Very much so. Mm-hmm.
And then a very, very kind and gracious young lady who just had her own wonderful Kickstarter is on board as well. Kelsey Dion from Shadow Dark RPG is thrilled. She's going to be contributing.
Her Kickstarter did fantastic.
They did okay. Yeah, I think I don't know what, $1.25 million or something like that. Yeah, they did right.
Just took off.
Yeah. Well, and it's because she put the work in. This is a hardworking young person who's kicked some asses. And I've known her. She comes to GaryCon, so I've happened to converse with her. And I was like, hey, man, I my co-writer, Matt Everhart, was like, you should ask Kelsey, because she was in Vegas. He was stationed in Vegas. And so they knew each other. And I was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, oh, crap. You just had like this Kickstarter go for like $1 million and something. Because I was talking to her at GaryCon. I had no idea. I was just saying, hey, how's it going? Here's my kids. Good to see you again. And I was like, yeah, somebody wanted to meet you. Let me get your number. So I texted her, hey, and she's like, yeah, I'm totally in. And I was like, why don't we convert it to Shadow Dark? She's like, I would love that. So assuming.
So is that happening?
It's going to happen. I just haven't.
Oh, that's
It's breaking news here.
It's breaking news right here.
I haven't told anybody else because I got to get through these stretch goals first.
Sure.
I mean, this is I guess it's a good problem to have, but
it's a very good problem.
There's just amazing folks that are helping out, that are lined up. So please help me out. Don't keep buying this stuff, guys, because I lined up some really wonderful people and they all said yes.
Oh, we have to make it happen. We got to.
I mean, I don't want to disappoint. I've got besides them, I've got like Alex Kammer to help out. I think Skeeter Green is going to help me out.
I love Skeeter Green.
Skeeter's great. Skeeter's a great dude.
I don't know how much energy you can fit into one human being, but Skeeter is just like a ball of chaos and so much fun to talk to.
And here I totally didn't even mention Patty Finn from Penny Dragon Games. I don't know if you know him. That great dude. I met him. He reached out to me and talked to me. Turns out he was Jehovah's Witness, raised a Jehovah's Witness as well. And I was, along with my family. And he was like, they were really against D&D. And I was like, yeah, we left because of that same reason. So we kind of connected over that. And he's like, hey, let me give you stuff for GaryCon. I want to give you some of our books for GaryCon. I'm like, well, okay, thanks. And then I happened to meet him at not a gaming show, something called 20 Books to 50K. It's for independent novel writers to learn how to independently market. So I met him there where I was running D&D. He played my game and just a hilarious, funny guy and so nice and welcoming. Had dinner with him and stuff. And he came to GaryCon as well. He's just been very helpful. And so he's like, yeah, 100%. I would create some magic items or contribute as well.
That's
so I've
amazing.
got, Patty Finn, Alex Kammer, Brian Berg, Kelsey Dion, Robert Schwab, Jeff Talanian, Chris Arneson Art. It's just all, it's
the list
all
is
there.
going on and on.
Yeah.
And you still have a lot of like road left on this.
Oh yeah.
Like 25 days, I think, right as of now.
Yeah, I think that's right.
We're gonna get that.
I think so. I think we can get there. But your question was, would my dad like it? And I would say yes, he would. My dad loved Morocco, and if you in his later works, you'll see that he has more of a caravans and bazaars and sort of that flavor of the Maghreb and a little bit of the Middle East. That was from his experience of traveling to Morocco. I didn't go to Morocco with him, but I heard lots about it and experienced and talked to his friend Andre and some other folks who had spent new amounts of time in Morocco. So when I happened to meet my wife when she was in college, I was taking some courses and she was from Morocco. And I was like, oh yeah. And she's like, yes, I know where Morocco is. And I was able to talk to her. She was like, oh wow, you're not an uncouth American who thinks that it's Monaco. So that helped me out quite a bit. And so she actually accepted my offer to go on a date.
Oh, that's great.
Do that. And then the rest is history. We're married and have.
There you go, kids. Learn your geography. Learn your geography.
It does.
It'll pay off.
Your geography. It does. It does pay off. She's a very beautiful woman, a great mom, and of course, great partner, and helps me out with GaryCon and everything. Obviously, very supportive. But yeah, Okram, not super surprisingly, being as my dad did a lot of this too. If you spell it backwards, if you look it backwards, looks a little bit like Morocco. So
yes, a little.
A little.
I
bit.
like
so
that.
There's some inspiration drawn from it. So that's how that name came about. And of course, my dad would enjoy it. He helped me with Gaxmore. I did 20 years ago with my brother, and my dad kind of play tested it with us. Said, hey, I'd punch this up by doing these things or whatever, and he had a blast. He had a blast with it, and of of course, working with your kids on something that you love, it doesn't get better than that, right? I mean,
what an opportunity.
He'd be extremely happy, and I only wish he were here to be able to see how many people are playing Dungeons and Dragons, all the how popular his work is. I think he understood, or at least somewhat. It's hard if you're. I think he felt uncomfortable to a certain extent taking credit for some of these loftier things that Dungeons and Dragons does. He's like, hey man, I really created this great game because I wanted to have fun and share it with my friends and others so we could have a good time together. It just so happens that it's also just this wonderful learning tool. And can benefit people in so many ways. So,
and as you said earlier, so many people have used it to overcome obstacles in their life and sort of practice skills that they wouldn't normally have. And I think there's real merit there.
There is. And I think he'd just be incredibly humbled by that and just blown away. But I know he'd be tickled pink to see how many people are playing and all the good that it's done. And he'd love it. So I just, that'd be a wonderful thing. If I could do anything, I'd bring my dad back so he could see that. But of course,
that's amazing.
Of course, as we said in the beginning, and I'll say it again, if you have the opportunity, if your parents are around, or loved ones,
yes.
Don't waste that opportunity. Make sure to pick up that phone, go over, knock on the door, and say hi, and chat with them, and let them know that you care.
Old Men Rolling Dice is brought to you by CanadianDice.ca. Don't forget to use the OMRD code at checkout for a 10% discount off your entire order.
Luke, this has been an absolute pleasure. I talked about checking things off bucket lists from GaryCon. This is just another thing on the list of things I wanted to have an opportunity to talk to you, meet you, and here we are, and I can't thank you enough.
No, it was my pleasure. I enjoyed the conversation as well, and thank you very much for having me.